Hello and welcome to Ikulu Weekly. President William Ruto was in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where he held a constructive bilateral meeting with Barbados Prime Minister on the sidelines of the Africa CARICOM Summit. At the second Africa CARICOM Summit, the president called on the United Nations to recognize reparatory justice, take bold action against the crushing weight of unfair debt, and commit to turning pledges into real and lasting change for both present and future generations. While still in Addis, Dr. Ruto engaged Bahamas Prime Minister Philip Edward in discussions focused on the situation in Haiti. He also held bilateral talks with Mr. Edgar LeBlanc, a member of Haiti's Transitional Presidential Council and head of the country's delegation to the summit. President Ruto further held bilateral engagements with Grenada Prime Minister Dicken Michel and Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Alphonse, reaffirming Kenya's strong partnerships with their nations. Later, the president addressed the summit and launched the report, Africa's Journey to Climate Action and Partnership. He also presided over the signing of a landmark cooperation agreement between Africa's development finance institutions and commercial banks to advance the climate-positive agenda launched at the inaugural Nairobi Summit 2 years ago. Under this agreement, financiers committed to mobilize up to $100 billion to power Africa's green industrialization, leveraging the continent's abundant renewable energy. On the sidelines of the summit, President Ruto addressed a special session on breaking the vicious cycle, debt, nature, and climate, where he called for a fair and just global financial order that recognizes the aspirations of all nations and gives every country the opportunity to thrive. Later in the week, the president joined fellow leaders at the historic inauguration of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. He affirmed Kenya's readiness to sign a power purchase agreement with Ethiopia to offtake surplus electricity to power industries and ICT hubs. Back in Nairobi, President Ruto received letters of credence from newly posted ambassadors to Kenya from Algeria, Hungary, Norway, Ukraine, Mexico, Egypt, Slovenia, and Uzbekistan. The head of state also hosted a Gusii political leadership delegation. In Kisii, the government has rolled out transformative projects that includes 15,000 affordable housing units worth 30 billion shillings, 2.5 billion shillings modern tertiary students' hostels, 4 state-of-the-art market valued at 2.4 billion shillings, and electricity connections for over 32,000 homesteads across Kisii and Nyamira counties. President Ruto further presented a check of 2.65 billion shillings to the Kenya Tea Development Agency, representing deposits previously held by the Kenya Deposit Insurance Company under the defunct Chase Bank and Imperial Banks. The week concluded with the president hosting grassroots leaders from Murang'a County to review progress on the government's development agenda in the county. It includes the allocation of 23 billion shillings for 10,300 affordable houses, 3.5 billion shillings to upgrade roads, 2.3 billion shillings for 23 modern markets. The government has also allocated 3 billion shillings for new students' hostels, 850 million shillings to connect over 10,000 households to electricity, 1.5 billion shillings to build 2 modern stadiums, and 2.4 billion shillings to provide clean water. President Ruto later received Ambassador Ramtane Lamamra, the personal envoy of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, on Sudan. The envoy briefed the president on efforts of the United Nations aimed to secure humanitarian access, de-escalate the war, and support a process that leads to civilian administration in Sudan. Finally, President Ruto met over 10,000 teachers at State House, Nairobi, and reaffirmed the government's commitment to supporting education. In the last 3 years, the government has increased the education budget from 540 billion shillings to 702 billion shillings, the largest increase in history, and hired 76,000 teachers. This number will be increased to 100,000 by January 2026 to boost the teacher-student ratio. That's it on Ikulu Weekly. Join us next week for more.
Your Excellency, you're a perfect teacher. Hands-on. Hands-on. You know close to everything. Everything. This is a historic event. I would wish that after every 2 years, Your Excellency, we come back here for Walimu na Rais. Solidarity. Solidarity. Solidarity.
There is a conversation we must have as citizens of Kenya on our present, our past experiences, and the future of this country. We must have that conversation. And I want us to have it because this country is probably the greatest country that God has given to us. And Kenya has huge potential, which if we unlock, this country will change in our lifetime when we are here.